Gaming and BS episode 114. Chain of Command in RPGs. Welcome to Gaming and BS, tabletop RPG podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, folks. Glad to have you here.
All right. Oh, where'd my notes go?
So we're recording a little bit earlier because I am heading up to the great north of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to try to go slay some animals. So Sean and I are a little bit early on the recording schedule, but we'll be back to our usual Slackcast time after this. But hey,
yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Right.
Whew. Announcements now. We're like post game hole. We need to go back to Alex and see if we can get him to sponsor us again for next year. Otherwise, we kind of sponsorless. I feel sad.
Yeah,
we'll have to do that. Have to see if we see if you'll let us back in the door after that thing we did.
What?
Sean's looking at me like, "What did you do, Brett?"
Tear up a hotel room or something?
Oh, it wasn't real bad. I mean, I'm sure he can hide a body or two. He's a lawyer. He's fine. Anyway, the only announcement I have is my my eternal quest to have more BSers run some games, show up, and hang out at EverCon. Depending on schedule, Sean might be able to make it. We're not sure. First part of January, evercon.org. Go check it out. Hopefully, we can see some folks there. It should be a good time. If nothing else, come hang out with me, and you've got an opportunity to talk to Ken Hite and some other cool people like that. So that should be fun. Any announcements on your side, Sean?
No.
No.
Okay. No. Yes.
Yes.
I updated the Patreon levels.
Oh, that's right. You did.
I did. Goals, and I got rid of some levels.
Okay.
Yeah, like we had one out there that was like $300 level and this goofy advertising spiel, and I'm like, So now I think
why let people have a thing we'd never deliver anyway? That just seems silly.
Well, that's true. But now I think we have some of the goals we have are
they more attainable, or should I be afraid?
Well, yes, you should be afraid.
Okay.
But let me see. I am so at $75, which we are only $7 away from on a per podcast episode. Brett will go an entire show without swearing, or also known as Sean has to edit the crap out of an episode, making me angry at Brett for swearing.
I can see that. What else do we have?
$100. We'll go target shooting. Hunter versus Army vet. Go toe to toe. See who is a better shot. And we'll record the video.
Makes sense. That works.
At 150, we'll record a session of us playing an RPG and release it as an actual play audio session or sessions. Find out how much of our show is true rhetoric.
Oh, I see.
200 level, we'll write an RPG adventure scenario and release it in PDF format to you. Who knows? Maybe it will have a train as a plot device.
I like it. Like everything about it.
$1,000. I'd put this one way up there. Now we may throw some in there in between this and the 200, but $1,000 an episode, which is $4,000 a month.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Which is enough for somebody to almost live on, I think, for the most. I mean, a lot of people to live on, because I know a lot of people are making less than that in the U.S. But Brett will shave his face, which he's. What are you going on? 20 plus years?
Yeah, I have to be. I mean, we're talking clean shaven, right? I mean, I get to keep the eyebrows, but otherwise, the beard and mustache go.
Yes, yeah. Okay. I should stipulate we're not shaving Brett's eyebrows. No,
that's not happening. Yeah, I have not been clean shaven for well over 20 years.
Just imagine if Wayne the Ewok shaves. That's probably what Brett would look like.
Oh, nice.
So if
we don't have it where I shoot you though. There has to be a shoot Sean in the head with an arrow or something.
I did not put the arrow shooting one up there yet.
That has to get in there. We got to figure out where that's at.
Yeah.
I've been working on a technique. I think I can. I think I can clean an arrow off. An apple off your head. I think I can do that pretty easily now.
Yeah.
I think we'll be good as long as you don't move or breathe real
I just
hard.
wonder what it'll be like, what the show will be like after that happens.
Well, it depends how much brain damage you suffer from the glancing blow. I'm sure it'll be fine. Nothing could go wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, pretty stoked about all this.
Sweet.
So
anything else for announcements?
No, I don't believe I have any other thing to announce.
Awesome.
All right, so let's get into Random Encounter.
Do it.
Random Encounter. This is a segment of the show where we field emails, voicemails, comments from social media. We should probably kind of, not go too far into this yet, Brett, because we may have some listeners that have never heard of us before that may be tuning into a regular episode for the first time today.
Good point.
And the reason we say that is because of the game hole piece. I've had some people not ever listen to us that are now picking it up for the first time. So, well, I don't know what else to say. Welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome to the show. And this is the Random Encounter section, which you already described.
Right, I did.
Which we do every show.
Well,
have forever.
Maybe we should just say, hey, we every week we put this out.
Yep.
So Brett and I typically record on Sunday evenings at 7:00 p.m. Central U.S. time. And then that allows me a little bit enough time in case I have to edit or do anything to put it out on the web, which drops at noon on Tuesdays, Central American time. Don't ask me the GMT. I don't know all that stuff. I think we're like at 6 hours. Now we have daylight savings time. That screws all that up too.
Dude, I can't fucking do math, so I have no idea what you're talking about there. All I know is I get on at the same time every Sunday and I record.
Yep, and we drop it every Tuesday. We've been doing that for the last, 100 and some episodes.
Correct.
If you are a Patreon, which I also updated, is that if I get done with the show, I post it to Patreon as soon as I'm done editing it. Typically, that could be up to noon on Tuesday, or it could be sooner. Typically it's sooner because I'm always wanting to be consistent when we drop our show.
You don't have a lot of editing to do.
We don't. We did at one time, but we've kind of said, screw that stuff now.
Exactly.
So, Podcatcher, you can find us on Android. You can find us on iTunes. If you go to gamingatbs.com, there are links to those particular RSS feeds, including a regular RSS feed. If you're a Patreon, they actually have an RSS feed that you can use strictly for Patreon. So you're a patron of the show, you use that RSS feed. So when I drop it, you will get that update in your podcatcher, which is nice.
And the Patreon cash goes to things like, Mike's time. When we had the social hour at Gamehole Con, that helps to fund that stuff. And then when Sean and I need to get to a con, trying to use that to make sure we've got wireless mics we run back and forth, and just the time spent to get all that stuff done. So it's not a get rich quick scheme by any means. I think
we're still in the red. I think we're still in the red.
Yeah. I think we're still some kind of upside downy thing.
Sean has some expensive taste in gear.
He does. It's good gear though.
It's good gear. Yeah, I think we're recording out of Madison, Wisconsin for the most part. Brett's a little bit further west of that.
Correct.
If you don't know much about us, Brett and I used to hang together. We used to work at the same place. I was a recruiter, helped land Brett as a diva candidate.
It was not easy.
Oh,
it was not easy.
This freaking guy's like, I want this, and I want that, and I want this, and I want green M&Ms with all the M's up facing up. And I'm like, come on, man. You're like working for a corporation here. You're not a rock star.
To Sean's credit, though, I did get M&Ms. They weren't all green, but it was pretty good.
And we started talking about gaming because he noticed I was a gamer. I had my laptop, had this just in from Gen Con on my laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Brett asked if I was a gamer. Said, yeah. Then we started doing lunch together. Bullshitting about RPGs that we were playing in our game group and all that. So I just said, hey, you want to do a podcast? Brett's like, sure, what do I need to do? said, just show up and look pretty, even though nobody's going to see your face.
And can you talk, Brett? Yeah, I said, I think I can talk. I don't know. I'll try. I promise. So I do okay on that spot.
So that's it, I think, for the most part, right?
For the most part, yeah.
So we do a few segments. We'll introduce them moving forward. But welcome to the show. If you if you want to interact with us, we have communities on Google+. It's pretty active. Facebook, we just put up a group. That's another announcement I should have put out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, we had a page before. A page is good for propagation of our info, but it doesn't really allow anybody else to post anything themselves.
Correct.
So we made a Facebook group, which we have out there at Gaming and BS. I don't remember the URL. Probably have to put that on our website somewhere. So if you're on Facebook, that's there. Twitter, we're at Gaming and BS on Twitter. You can find us on any of those channels. Yeah.
Email,
Gaming and BS. I actually have a different email. What is it? What I put? feedback@gamingandbs.com?
I think that is correct.
Yeah, we changed it. It used to be a Gmail address. Now we have our own domain emails. Brett and I, we do have our separate accounts, but we really don't use them necessarily. It's just, hey, you want to email one or the other, it just goes to that feedback@gamingandbs.
It's just a big bucket. We kind of
Big bucket. Yes.
Big bucket of feedback.
Right. That's one way. Or you can call the Gaming and BS hotline at 929-BIG-DICE.
Oh, yes. We do get occasional voicemails. They're fun to have.
Every once in a while, we do get a voicemail, and that is certainly welcome. You're welcome to comment on the main topic or whatever's on your mind. If you have topic suggestions, hit us up on any of those platforms. We would love to entertain your idea, comments, things of that nature. So, Brett,
Yep.
Did I miss anything? I think that summed it up pretty well.
No, dude, I think that's about it. Yeah, that's the basics.
All right, let's do random encounter from the top.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Here we go.
Random encounter, segment of the show where we field emails, voicemails, and comments from social media. We've got some pretty decent lengthy ones this week, Brett, because we didn't do them last week.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the first one, then we'll swap around here. So comes from Gabe on aging characters. This is from episode 112. Hey, guys, interesting topic, quick thoughts. In Ultimate Campaign, Pathfinder has mechanics and guidelines for playing young characters. However, this volume does not have much more than core book to say on aging characters. I've thought about this topic on more than one occasion. Content providers for Pathfinder, at least in the pages of the Pathfinder comic book, have at least on one occasion pointed to an oddity. Pathfinder's iconic characters, the wizard Ezrin, is significantly older than the other iconics, but not significantly more advanced in level. Though Pathfinder provides a table for average characters' wealth by level, it does not provide it's like by age. Moreover, level advancement, traditionally calculated through experience points, is only tangentially related to age. The assumption is that an older character has more time than a younger character to gain experience. However, the old timer who never left his river valley to kill anything larger or more dangerous than a white-tailed deer, hey, it's tricky to do. Just saying. Anyway, it would never owned more coin than a few dozen copper. Languishes away at level 1, while 15-year-old quote-unquote fighter wielding father's battle-worn longsword advances to level 2 through a dozen slain goblins and 3 hours of quote-unquote adventuring. I'm very attracted to the idea of crafting a table that specifies average character level by age. But as is illustrated by the example above, this is counter to the rate of actual advancement through gameplay. The adventures I myself run tend to be as frenetic as an Indiana Jones movie. My current PCs have advanced from levels 1 to 10, and I don't know, maybe on the high end, 3 months of campaign time has gone by. We've been playing for about 2 years now, 4 hours a week. With other systems, of course, these considerations are less problematic. Many systems allow players to create whatever kinds of characters they like, justifying their choices with point buys and good old-fashioned role-playing. And these other systems seem to take into consideration something else that appears overlooked in D20 and perhaps OSR rule sets: body types and lifestyles. Who cares how old a character is as long as the character concept is that she still is in peak physical condition, adhering to a daily regimen that is at odds with the other PCs who, let's say, abhors physical exercise and seeks out rich food and strong drink whenever and wherever he might find it. Well, interesting show, gentlemen. And now I might make that level by age table, perhaps a guide for my NPCs, if nothing else. You, a Gamehole Con. Gabe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gabe.
I know the guys at Misdirected Mark gave us a little bit of shit with Chris gave us the tongue in cheek. Well, you guys running out of topics? What the heck? No,
Phil said that.
Did Phil say that?
Yeah.
One of them did. Which is, I mean, those guys are awesome.
You know, that's funny though, because I was at that struck a story with me when I was at Gamehole Con, and I was sitting in the open area where there's kind of concessions. It's really open. For those that have been there, will know what I'm talking about. But it's area. There's a concession stand, and I'm sitting kind of a few feet from there, just hanging out, right? And one of the guys walked by and recognized the shirt I was wearing, which is where this person works. And then I realized who it was. His name's Zach. I think he did say he listens to the show, so shout out to Zach, MP. So he sat down. We started talking. Another guy walks up, works at the same place. Knows Zach. Obviously, they work together. His name's Josh. So he says, yeah, I never heard you guys, podcast. What's that all about? They're both programmers. And I said, well, Josh, not that that's relevant to the story, but I said, well, we're two guys. We bullshit on the air. Brett and Sean, it's double entendre. Just ask Bob from Misdirected Mark. He will understand that and verify that. And but I said, we one thing we brought up was heroism. We talked about it. And I said, it's kind of a topic that you probably wouldn't sit down and think of off the top of your head. But, we kind of bullshit around with it as if we were sitting around a table just bringing up topics of RPGs and waxing over them, right? So when Phil mentioned, what do you guys run out of topic about, whatever, it goes back to Josh. This Josh guy's like, well, that's actually a decent that's really understandable because then you could talk about this, and you could talk about that. And he just kind of went on with certain things like what is heroism.
So you found a replacement for Brett if I ever leave, basically is what you found right there.
Well, I think he said, there's a viable discussion there that can be brought up and elaborated on. And I thought, so when I heard Phil say that, I'm like, well, there's somebody out there that actually thinks like if I put out a topic out there, they'll be like, well, there's merit behind discussing that, regardless of how popular it is, I guess.
Well, even if there's an idea, we've talked about gear and living gear, henchmen, hirelings, horses, and stuff like that. Sometimes it doesn't. Some people are like, oh, I don't care about that, or encumbrance, I don't care about that, and that's fine. And we love Phil and Chris and Bob, and those guys are awesome over there.
Well, I was kind of downplaying it, and he was like, "No, that's real. No, I could totally see that, and I could, see this." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, yeah, that's right." So yeah, we do those topics, and we do a few other things. And
it's actually anyway. That's part of some of the fun for me is to think about the different shit that hits me when my group is making characters or something. Somebody will say, no one ever cares about the X, whatever that happens to be, a mechanic or whatever. And it just sits in the back of my head and perks for a while. I'm like, yeah, I've been doing this since third grade, and I never have really thought about that thing. What about that thing?
Well,
and then it comes up.
It's kind of like, if you're playing a game and you don't want to play by the rules, that's cool.
Absolutely. Because I kind of do that.
Yeah.
More often than not.
Right. And it's not wrong. It's just some people would say that. They would say, hey, if you're not playing by the rules of that game, then why are you playing that game, right? We've had that mentioned.
Yeah,
right?
We've had that talk.
Not to rehash it over and over, but nonetheless. I don't know. I don't know how we got on that topic.
I have no idea.
But anyway. I just thought it was interesting that somebody that I'm like, kind of blowing it off, like, yeah, we're just these two guys, and he's like, oh, no, that's a pretty good topic. I mean, I could see how that would come about, and you could talk about this, you can talk about that. But anyways, that's it. I'll stop now.
That's all right. I'll read the next one.
Oh, okay. Wow.
It's it's not that long.
Oh,
okay. It's kind of not that big a deal.
Right.
Graham Meinert commented on our G Plus episode. Speaking of the heroism, he went back to the heroism episode where we had Alex Kammer from Gamehole on there. And on the topic of heroism in dystopian games like Apocalypse World and Shadowrun, I think the position that settings like these produces heroics is the greater sense misses the truth of it. In most Apocalypse World's games I've ever played in, making the shithole world somewhat less shitty is the whole point. I think one could make a fair argument that even Max Rokostansky is struggling to make the world at least marginally better.
Who's that?
I'm not sure. How successful that is another matter. Shadowrun, the most cyberpunk games in fiction, tend a slightly more heroic bent as well. The long story arcs are usually about exposing the latest awful deeds committed by the corporations or the corrupt executives. In these kind of settings, heroics fall into the quote-unquote small-scale department rather than the quote-unquote world-saving category. Given the likelihood of success or reward, doing right in a dystopia may be more heroic than in settings where the sun will rise warm and golden over the verdant valley and the halfling farmers will throw you a feast. You know, Graham, that's a very good point, and I think that goes to, I think we tried to touch on that there a little bit in an episode. I have to go back and re-listen to what we ranted through there. But that, excuse me, in my Avalon setting, it's I try to do a similar thing where it's small heroics, kind of a smaller scale. And I think in dystopian worlds, unless you are trying to change the entire dystopian world, which, you know, good luck in, you know, an actual apocalyptic setting. You're not going to make it magically better unless there's some magic that could make it magically better. Anyway, short version is that you're trying to make a small piece of a shitty world less shitty or improve the lives of a smaller group of people. There is some definite heroism that can be found in there, at least as far as I would describe it. So that's a very good point, Graham. And I appreciate you calling that out, sir. That's good stuff.
Yes. Thanks for writing in. Absolutely, Graham. All right. Eileen Barnes.
Yeah, she's this is going to be a long one, but it's good. I read it, so this will be fun.
I don't think I put the subject in the email, which probably something I should have considered.
This is when she's calling BS on me, isn't she?
She has a bone to pick with Brett, something to that effect.
All right, I'll sit back and be flogged here. Off you go.
She may be watching this. Sometimes she puts us on her TV, which is probably a little bit too much BS, I would say. But
yeah, well, hopefully it's a small screen TV because otherwise it'd be too much BS in your face. That'd be a lot to deal with. Anyway, your turn.
You have a definite deficit in female responders to your show, so please allow me to do what I may to remedy that. Hey.
We do have Angela writes in periodically and gives us what for, and which is always good.
We do, but it's like I just did a presentation at a conference for my field, which is recruiting and talent acquisition. And the Stack, I don't know how I'm getting on this topic, but nonetheless, Stack Overflow did a survey of like 56,000 developers. And they did how big the gender difference is. Everybody knows that IS and IT is male dominated beyond belief. Brett, do you even know how male dominated?
It's got to be like 90 percentile, isn't it?
Oh, it's much higher.
Oh, well, holy crap. Okay.
Yeah, it's like 90, I believe 98%, if I'm not mistaken, if I recall my number.
Damn.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, 96, 98%. It's crazy. That's crazy and a problem. But nonetheless, thank you for writing in, Eileen. We definitely need some diversity.
Yeah, more of you and Angela and others like you. And intelligent women telling us, calling BS. Let's hear it.
All right. So first, slightly off topic, I'm still Team Brett and agree that Sean should not be attempting an Aussie accent.
This is the patron level that needs to be done. A patron level that says if we do it, both Sean and Brett have to do like the entire episode in an Aussie accent or something crazy.
Well, would it be that people would pay us not to do it? Or
yes.
To do
I think
it?
we could do both.
Yeah, we could do both at different levels.
Maybe. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
There. Now, this isn't a beat up on Brett kind of letter.
Well, that was, so I agree with Brett. Sean shouldn't sound like an idiot. So there, now let's go after Brett. I like this.
Well, I have a bone to pick with Brett, but now this isn't a beat up on Brett kind of letter.
All right.
Like, hey, I'm going to let you finish. I don't mean to interrupt. Right.
Nice.
Eileen. Come on, Eileen. Hey-o. Hey, Gus.
Yeah, no one's that joke has never been made towards Ms. Barnes.
I'm sure she's never heard that. Yeah. All right. We're never going to get through this show.
No, we're not. As Bob would say, we're going long.
In response to Pure Mongrel's letter in episode 111, which also ties in with what I will go into here, would not good or evil be defined as what is for the betterment or detriment of society? Thus, which is defined as which could vary depending on viewpoint. In Forgotten Realms would not Drow view their structured society as good, and wandering adventurers who wish to undermine their way of life as bad? However, the definitions are written from the viewpoint of topside majority cultural norms. They, being viewed as evil, is what I would consider a cultural minority in what they allow in their society is not viewed as acceptable in most other nations.
That's the Red Wizards of Thay in Faerun, for those who don't know the Forgotten Realms world.
That's good. I'm glad you said that, Brett, because I am not familiar with FR like you are. Evil is against the betterment of the majority, just as chaotic is against the enforcement societal structure. Because they are so similar in definition, this could explain why people struggle to grasp the difference between good versus evil and lawful versus chaotic. One is about benevolence and the other one is about structure, though as such, well-known characters as Robin Hood or Batman might display, they do not necessarily go hand in hand. Now, for those poor orc babies or giant babies, as if you recall in the past episode, we referred to like, well, what if you come across like the babies of the baddies?
Yeah, because Alex brought up the fact that in the setting of the Hill Giant Chief and against the Giants, there is a nursery. There's infant giants.
And he doesn't, and he takes them out.
He just takes it out because
he removes the encounter. Doesn't take out the babies. Yeah.
Yeah, just takes out the babies because, well, that's what you do in Brett's game is you kill the babies. But anyway, carry on.
Behavior is what defines good or evil, no?
Oh, crap, I'm evil.
Behaviors are learned through nurture. They are societal constructs passed on from generation to generation. Babies, at least humanoid, in D&D, dragons seem to be fairly aware of the world at the point of hatching, so that is something which I might someday grill the D&D writers about. Lack the cognitive development to have grasped morality and decision-making. If they lack that ability to make that decision, and that decision and learned behaviors are what determine good or evil, then are not most evil creatures' offspring not yet evil until they learn to be or not to be? That is the question.
Fair enough.
All right. Genocide is never an okay, especially lawful good. How can one be truly good if one does not believe in some form of redemption? I think it's profound.
It's a good point. And this is, we talked a little bit about this in an alignment episode a while back. Alignment's tricky because there's so many different ways to cut, slice, dice, and define. So carry on, sir.
I do agree that playing in neutral is incredibly difficult. Chaotic neutral grates on my last nerve purely because they lack motivation for anything but their whims. They care nothing for good, evil, or structure, and that undermines just about any overarching motivation to a character. They are the person who might get swept up in events they desire nothing to do with, but for personal motivation, they're bland and boring. They'd rather sit on the sidelines as much as possible and let it all blow over. They might be entertaining comedic relief in a one-shot or short campaign, but for the long haul, they lack depth in my experience. Here we go. Brett, my bone to pick with you, your choice of do what thou wilt as a driving force for anarchy. The full quote is, do what thou wilt shall
be the whole of the law.
Be the whole of the law.
Yes.
And delves into
Aleister Crowley, by the way.
Mr. Crowley.
God, I
dun, dun, dun.
the worst.
Would you ride your
enough. God, I hate that song. Carry on.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Aleister. So sure, you can go, let's see. All right, sure. You can go do stupid shit and hurt others, but you'd better be prepared to face the consequences. It is the apotheosis of freedom, but it is also the strictest possible bond.
Mm-hmm.
Used properly, it would make for a lawful alignment, though not necessarily restricted to good, neutral, or evil. I think it might lend itself to neutral, but that reasoning goes away deeper into the philosophy than I care to go in this email. Maybe we can wax philosophic over whiskey someday. To pull this back into the heroics episode, heroism is defined as being courageous, is acting where there is fear to be overcome. The odds are not in your favor and you persist regardless. Heroic is putting yourself on the line to the betterment of others, whether it be a specific person or set of persons or masses of otherwise unknown people. When compared to my own definition of good versus evil, heroic characters are good aligned, acting for the betterment of the masses, and go out of their way to stop bad stuff happening. Your motivation as a hero is not fat loot and a big sword. Your motivation is the safety and or betterment of others while running personal risk to yourself. Scale of the action is not so much as important as altruism. Someone who takes a bullet to save a small child is as much of a hero to that child's mother as someone who throws themselves into a multidimensional portal is to those billions of lives saved from extraplanar evil. Same 6 assholes off to save the world again and all that. Maybe I've beaten this dead horse enough and Pure Mongrel can have this soapbox back. Cheers, Eileen, the graphic novelty wife.
So I will admit that I did use the do what thou wilt. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you. I did use the do what thou wilt. I did purposely shortcut that just to add some fun to the anarchy discussion there. So I was aware that was not the complete quote. And it is fair to call me out on that. Misquoting or hacking a quote, excuse me, just to make a point is not necessarily good because it does leave out the rest of what she rightfully calls out for that particular statement. I don't honestly, the more I have, I was an English and philosophy major in college. Altruism, the whole concept of altruism, I don't believe in. I don't think that's actually possible. No one is really altruistic, at least in my understanding. But that, again, is a discussion possibly for a different day. But I do get the point I mean, he's making there, right? Is scale of action is perhaps, again, it kind of goes to the other discussion, right? Where a small bit of heroism, right? Saving a child or saving a small town or saving an individual can be just as heroic as saving hundreds of thousands of people. The scale of the story and the scale of the event doesn't always necessitate one heroic action being bigger, grander, or better than the other. So this is really good stuff. Thank you, Eileen. I really like this letter. This was really nice.
Obviously very articulate and well thought out for sure. So I know that.
It also gives more, it's more ammo in my belt around the fact that alignment is one of those things that it simplifies a very complex topic in a D&D.
Well, that is for sure.
And to simplify a thing down to something that is a mechanical construct, you kind of need to do that. I like the hard choices concepts that are in some of the games, like your Dungeon World and so forth, creating hard choices for people, which is how, to her point, right, is by finding what behavior there is. You know, having a character in a couple games I'm running right now, the Avalon game I'm running, put a hard choice in front of the group and see what it is that they do with that. Does Emily do the right thing, quote unquote, or she do the wrong thing, quote unquote? Depends. It all giving someone an opportunity to show what they're made of, if you will, is a good way to talk or have the alignment discussion without having to say, well, you can't do that because you're chaotic neutral. Oh, you would never do that because you're lawful good. Give them the hard choice and see what they do. I think that is it creates better role-playing experiences and is a lot more fun. At least that's my opinion.
All right, let's get into the main topic.
Let's do it.
All right, what are we talking about this week, Brett?
I want to talk about Chain of Command in role-playing games. And I'm
fall in.
Exactly. Everybody line up, soldier. I have run a couple different games over the years. Some have been military-based. Some have been kind of a Firefly-y based thing. The concept of you've got someone in charge by rank and others beneath that individual, and how that works. You know, captain on the pirate ship. You've got a captain on Firefly. You've got Mal in charge there. You have sergeants, privates, captains, lieutenants, blah, 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 depending on branches of service and all this stuff. I have it can be really tricky, I have found in role-playing games, especially one shots. I found them to be much easier. People go, oh, I'm the sergeant and she's the lieutenant. I can easily heave to, and Eileen's the lieutenant and just a sergeant. I'm a private. Fine. They tell me the orders come from on top, or shit rolls downhill. I go off and do the thing. In one shots, people seem to, in my experience, kind of bite into them. When it comes to a longer campaign, though, I think the natural tendency that I have seen is like, oh, wait a minute. The captain just gave me a really stupid order. Why do I have to do this stupid thing? My character doesn't want to do that. And it can be really, really challenging. Sean, have you run? So I want to talk about that. Sean, have you run a game with a strict chain of command or a loose chain of command, anything like that before?
Yes, I have, Brett. Excuse me. Last year at Gamehold Con, I ran Weird War II, which is World War II, with crazy werewolf zombie Nazis.
So that's kind of the one-shotty, right? I mean, that was just a con game.
It was.
How did it go? So not to belittle that. So that wasn't my intent with that statement.
Right. Sure.
How did it go? Did the players dig it? Did they get into it?
Jeff Rademacher was in that game. I thought so. I think Jeff took up the reins as the most senior enlisted individual of the squad.
And when we have seen Jeff after that, he did not punch you or anything. So assuming it went well.
Yeah, I think it went all right. He didn't talk to me much this year, so maybe there's something going on.
Ooh, that could be Trouble in Paradise.
Just kidding.
One of our listeners now hates us. God damn it.
Yeah, I went fine. Yes. So there is a bit of a topic to this that I don't know if you want me to comment on it now or not.
Go for it. I mean, this is their shtick, right? I want to bring this up and just kind of hit it. My main piece of this is that it's challenging, and that there may be a right or a better way to do it than I have done in the past. I've got some good stories and some horror stories to share. So lay it on me, Sean. What have you got?
So one of the things that you have to keep in mind if you're going to run a military campaign, and you're going to have to address this, and I think Brett and I are going to beat this sucker to a dead pulp, but nonetheless, you can't have somebody that is not into role-playing or into the game be kind of the higher-ranking person. I mean,
I agree.
I guess they can be. I mean, it's not I don't know. There seems to be like, you can do whatever you want in role-playing games because nobody can tell you if you're doing good, wrong, fun, or whatever. So, but I do have to say that if you are kind of the leader of the group and you do not tend to take that and kind of run with it, it's not gonna work very well.
And I have a counter to that in one specific example, but I must also say, excuse me, that I think everybody, honestly, to take that even one step further, everybody involved needs to understand that we're playing a chain of command game, and we are not going to abuse this. We're not just going to say, hey, I make Sean's character clean my toenails because it's funny. I'm the commander and he has to do it because he's a private. I mean, that's not a good way to go.
No, it's not, but
the players have to be in. The players have to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to sign up for it. I really want to try this, or I'm going to do it and get into it. And I think it's to kind of coin a phrase from our Bardic episode back in the day. It's for role playing. You really need to role play it. You can have a mechanic if you wish, excuse me, to potentially force somebody to listen, or you could use intimidate skills and stuff like that if it comes down to it. But if you're going to devolve your chain of command game into a player versus player, every time the captain wants a sergeant to do something, a sergeant is going to be an ass and argue with him. And you're like, fine, then I just use my intimidate skill. Fine, then I use this. Then it becomes very confrontational. That's PvP. It's just skill on skill, and it can get really, really ugly.
Yeah, I totally agree, man.
So on the flip to what you said, I ran a game at EverCon a number of years ago. It was a Call of Cthulhu game. It was all chain of command. And a kid, he was about 13, wanted to be the captain. And everyone else said, okay. I had grown men at the table, other older kids, and everyone said, sounds good. I can't remember the kid's name, so I'll just call him Sam. And so Sam's running the character. And what the group would do, one of the more experienced players, I think it was Zave, was playing the second in command. And he came up to him and said, sir, here's a situation. This is what I think we should do. What are your orders, sir? And the kid would say, well, what do you think we should do? Well, sir, like I said, I think this would be the best move. But so what we did, though, was it gave that kid opportunity to be the whole table would turn and look at Sam expectantly. Hey, kid, what do you got for us? We're going to go do this thing. And he loved it. It was this really cool thing. He wanted to be in charge, and he was able to be in charge, make a couple decisions, and based on really good intelligence. So what the players did underneath him, which not being a military man myself, but Sean is former Army. My assumption is at some point, if you have a officer who is not necessarily, you want to make sure the officer has the best information possible, kind of like talking to executives. You want to make sure they've got the right data to make the right decision, that i.e. the one you want them to make. So sometimes that's a thing you do, is you feed your superiors data in a certain format to get them to do things for you. But the whole thing worked is because of the role-playing component of it. Everybody got into it and said, yes, I'm going to do this. Again, though, that was a one-shot. Have you done a campaign, series of games, a longer story arc, whatever you want to say, something more than just a one-session event or a con game when you've had players in this scenario?
We have played Star Trek role-playing game. One of the top 3 when I was growing up. I think it was in no particular order: Top Secret, D&D, and Star Trek VASA. And I got to remove my cat. It's driving me crazy. So, yes, we did long campaigns. I don't remember if I ran a lot of the Star Trek campaigns, but obviously it's got a military structure to it. But
did it work?
Yeah, it worked because we all watch Star Trek. So just because you're Captain Kirk doesn't mean, what you say does kind of go, but part of that game is feeding, like you said, that person a lot of information because they're leaning on their, subordinates to give them that info, and then they make decisions based on that. All it is in the end is somebody needs to make a decision. And then when you're in the military, you can't have a committee.
No, that's a bad idea.
The committee just kills everything. And so that's the point of it, of a military structure. That's why they call it a command decision. We need somebody to make a command decision. That's what they're referring to. Somebody just has the authority to just say, this is what we're going to do. I've got all the info I need. I know there's people that are going to be disagreeing with, this choice.
Yeah, like it or lump it, go fucking do what I told you to do.
That's right.
Those are orders, soldier. Go do that thing.
Right. So, in a role-playing game, that's kind of cool because you could potentially, and especially with like a 3-person game, and you got, Bones, Spock, and Captain Kirk, or equivalents of them. And then, got one, Spock and McCoy arguing with each other, and they're trying to influence Captain Kirk to go a particular direction. And Captain Kirk goes one way or the other, and the other one gets like, oh, I don't agree, but okay, fine. I got to toe the line.
So that's the piece where, in my experience, that depending if people aren't really into it or they don't understand how that's supposed to work and they don't buy into that, then it gets ugly where the player goes, well, fine, fuck that. No, that's stupid. Why would you do that? Oh my God. And then they kind of not hissy fit is a wrong phrase, but people get very upset sometimes when they feel that they're being, not listened to, or that's just stupid. I've seen that type of thing before. And sometimes then, depending on who your captain is or the person in charge, that individual may decide to take it upon himself. Fine, throw him in a brig. Fine, you're going to be insubordinate, motherfucker. Guess where you're going?
Yeah.
And there's a weird escalation like that can, like I said, then it becomes very PvP, players just trying to get at each other for that.
Yeah, it does take a certain maturity level to pull off that game. Because if you get into that, that's not the way life works. Like it really isn't the way life works. Whether you're in the workplace or you're in the military, you're not going to throw a shit fit and a temper tantrum because somebody didn't take what you said.
Oh, I've seen that happen in the workplace. I've actually seen that happen. Those people don't work in that place very long, though. Is usually what happens, right?
Well, I suppose.
So anyway, though, you get to point what you're pointing at there for like Star Trek, and even if you look at Firefly, at one point, spoilers for a show that's been off the air forever and everybody talks about. Anyway, so in Firefly, there's a character, Jane, who's arguing with Mal. Jane's trying to cut a deal on the side. Mal has enough of his shit and almost spaces him, basically sticks him in the airlock, and is like, look, I'm in charge. You double cross me, dude. I don't know, man. I don't know. They have a back and forth, and then he lets him back in, and everything is quote unquote okay. But there's a couple of points in there where people are mad. They're very angry, and they're in Mal's face. He's like, I'm the fucking, I mean, they don't swear on the show, but I'm the fucking captain. It's my ship. I said no. And when you do that, the other person, and they kind of, the registers and had I can't countermand that. It's true. I'm on here to do this job, and I listen to this person walk off, storm off, kick things in your bunk or whatever, and then come back. But
mutiny will get you shot.
Yes, it can.
Mutiny's no joke because it's a ship.
Exactly.
And there's no room for that crap.
And especially if you're in space, it's not a good idea, right? Yeah. But I think that's a piece when you said maturity level. It's a thing that even if you have a very mature group of gamers, people have to really understand that. Look, it may be X card worthy. Like, look, I just can't have people abusing authority. You can have people who have too much, who take the authority too far, like throw them in a brig, take away his supper, whatever. You can't just do that without expecting repercussions from your fellow players. And on the flip side is everything can't be a committee decision. You have to go with it. You don't have to be happy. You can register your complaint. You can say, sir, permission to speak freely. Permission granted, soldier. I think this is fucking stupid. Duly noted. Get back to your work. All right, off you go. You can have those back and forth, but if you get into the character and play the role, the back and forth becomes something that later on the private gets to smile and smirk as the sergeant is, shoveling shit because, hey, guess what? I told you that was going to happen, and that's what happened, right? So there's ways to role play your way through that pain, but everybody has to agree to do it. And I think to help enforce the maturity component, especially for a longer, more drawn out storyline, the game master and the players have to potentially be reminded of that agreement. Because even if you play every week or every other week or once a month, like my group in our Traveler game, it's a chain of command that we have set up for Traveler. When we get back together next time, I'm going to say, now remember, we have the chain of command. Beta is the captain. We've got this guy doing this job. This guy's doing this job. This person's doing that job. And she's doing that job. Great. Okay, good. Now, last time, Zave's doctor was upset about a process or a procedure, so forth. Run that stuff down, and then everybody can take it, kind of react with it, and go on. But I think that reminder as you kick the game off or periodically throughout. Now, remember, this is what we agreed to do. Maybe not in those direct words, but subtly or overtly, if necessary, just to make sure everybody is remembering what they agreed to, I guess.
Well, yeah. And if they want to play that out where they could disagree with the commanding officer or whatever, and they want to go field grade Article 15 and go under the Uniform Code of Military Justice and throw them into jail and put them on trial and all that other good stuff, or if they're on a ship and want to try them for mutiny, I mean, that could be a whole nother game.
That could actually make for a kind of interesting game, depending on who or why you were forced to do a thing.
And you throw some sanity rules in there, and you got mutiny on the bounty, man. You got some, hey, where's my strawberries? Where are my strawberries?
Good point. So the other piece with this is that when we think chain of command, a lot of times it comes, oh yes, Army, Navy, Marines, people in space, ships, boats, behind enemy lines, blah blah blah. Police officers,
podcasts, Sean Brett,
yeah, mostly. I do what I'm told. I act tough, but I just do what I'm told.
Well, hey, look at it this way, Brett.
Mm-hmm.
You're second in command.
Oh, that's great. I have a 2-man show. That's great.
We'll hire somebody else, and
we'll hire somebody else. That's why we got Wayne the Ewok.
That's right.
So I can be in charge of someone. That's why we brought Wayne on board.
Now, Wayne is a that's bad news. He's looked at the bottom of a brig a few times.
That's a good point. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that chain of command is not necessarily just a military thing. Police officers have a system. Detectives, sergeants, lieutenants, beat cops. There's different structures within that. The FBI, the CIA, different government organizations, they all have a command structure, much like organizations where I work, corporate America, and so forth. It's not quite as strict per se.
PMs, program managers.
Yeah, but Brad. You can see, me, way down the bottom. Anyway, but you can see people, even in those environments, are nervous to go talk to the big boss. Oh my God, the senior vice president's really upset. Oh my God, what do I tell this person? Oh, she's going to be so mad. And then if you take it outside that, your cults, your secret societies, there's the grand poobah of the cult of Cthulhu. There's the head priest of the cult of Dagon. There is the head of this church or whatever it is. And then there's subordinates. There's people beneath everybody in a lot of those areas. And I think,
there's 32nd degree Masons.
yes. So I think when you do that, how do I do it? Kind of the training wheels before you go to a full-blown military version of it, in my opinion, is starting with a smaller type of organization, right? The cop movie where the guy walks in and the captain says, damn it, Kelly, give me your badge, blah, blah, blah. Fine, throws the badge. You can have those moments where you're breaking the law, you're breaking the rules, you're doing this thing. You're still forced to operate within a chain of command of sorts, and it's not like police officers don't have a strict chain of command, right? It's not like it's all loosey-goosey craziness. But from a gamer perspective, it feels like in those places, there's more freedom or latitude of movement as opposed to we're behind enemy lines in World War II, and I don't like what the lieutenant has said, so I'm going to mutiny. That's a really bad fucking idea. When across the other side, you have werewolves and zombies and craziness involved. Now's not really a good time to tell lieutenant you don't like his views on something, right? So before I started doing chain of command, military style games and so forth, I look back at the different secret organizations that the teams would run into or the group would play, be a part of or whatever. Remember when you were part of a church and you had to listen to the head priest, or you're in this fantasy setting, whatever it is, kind of leaning on that stuff and then building everybody's experience with that, and then jumping into a more hardcore chain of command for a military organization. That's the thing I did. I don't know if that's something everybody needs to do, or it was just an idea I had that it seemed to work for me anyway.
We should mention that just because there's a military command structure hierarchy in place doesn't mean that it's all I have the final say, and that if you don't agree with me, you're going to get thrown in jail or the brig or whatever, or getting kicked out of the military. I have seen enlisted soldiers and enlisted non-commissioned officers chew out lieutenants. It happens, and it gets rough out there, and they don't end up going to Leavenworth and making big
which
rocks,
is good, because at last
rocks.
I heard that's not a nice place to be.
No,
by all accounts.
But I'm just saying that there are times when if you're out in the field and you're kind of like, you realize that you have the military structure in place, of course, you have the ranks, but at the same time, there is kind of a candor that can take place depending on the relationship of the two individuals or multiple individuals. I've seen staff sergeants, chew the shit out of lieutenants, first and second lieutenants. Now, it's not like they're chewing out a colonel or anything, but nonetheless, they don't have to necessarily stand for some shit that they don't believe in. They may get hit with something, they may not. It may just be somebody that talks to the sergeant and says, "Look, I know you're pissed off, and the lieutenant's kind of a knucklehead, but you can't be going off on him all the time, because then that's just not going to work.
It's not good for morale. Blah blah blah.
Morale, and you're not supposed to."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do. Don't do that.
Kind
That's
of breaking,
basically against.
Yeah, you're breaking the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of goes back to what you'd said at the beginning, is like, it's basically a heavy role playing thing. You really have to get into it. And the other piece, like I said, from a reminder perspective, is like, look, just because Beta's character is mad at JR because JR overstepped and, has got Ange's character scrubbing the latrine floor with a toothbrush, that doesn't mean everybody has to have a throwdown. Everybody goes to the brig and there's always a court martial. That is an extreme end of the military spectrum. To my knowledge, Sean, and to my friends like you and other men and women I know who've served or been cops and so forth, there's lots of different ways that officers or people in charge get their point across without having to, I'm sorry, that was insubordination, you're fired. That doesn't happen all that often, unless it's incredibly egregious. There's lots of different ways to pull someone aside and say, look, motherfucker, do that again. I double dare you, do that again and see what happens. Everybody gets one type of approach. I mean, there's ways to do different things, and that's where the role playing comes into it, right? Where a decent commander, a decent person who's really in charge of a thing, walking around swinging your what and stick it in everybody's face isn't necessarily a good way to be considered a good commander and really get the best results from your team. One of my favorite stories, a buddy of mine's father told me when he was unfortunately passed away a number of years ago. He was a Vietnam vet, and he and his lieutenant did not get along very well. And Thompson got in trouble, and he was told to go spot paint the Jeep. So he painted concentric circles all over the Jeep. Well, I mean, there's ways that things can happen. And, Thompson was not like, court-martialed and thrown out. He just got on the shit list.
Yeah, and you end up having to repaint the whole fucking Jeep.
Yeah.
So you're just making more work for yourself. Sometimes soldiers are not the brightest bulbs in the lamp.
Exactly. But it's those are the things that from a role-playing perspective, it's funny. You did it. You pissed him off. Yeah, you got to repaint the whole damn thing. But guess what? He was late. Or he had to drive that Jeep to a meeting with the colonel, and he's in this polka dot Jeep, right? That just looks great. So there's ways that things can go back and forth. Again, it's not everybody gets court-martialed. Not everybody's up against a firing squad. Not everybody's spaced. Every time somebody acts up, not everybody gets stuck in the air, in the airlock and just spaced. That doesn't happen all the time.
Well, and rank doesn't have to be always this huge this black cloud looming over everybody that's involved with your game, or just if it's military based. And I'll give you an example. It is not. So there are some things in the military kind of arena etiquette wise that happens, and it's fine because it's kind of the way the culture is. Just like corporate culture in different organizations is what it is, military culture has its own as well. So I'll give you an example. So say I was serving in the military, U.S. Army, and I was a corporal. When you are a colonel or you're a higher ranking person like a captain or something, it isn't entirely unlike them to call people by their first name. And in the military, typically that's taboo. I mean, if somebody called me Sean in the Army, it would throw you off. It would be kind of calling you a nickname that you didn't like. Because everybody's known by their last name or maybe some nickname, but you rarely called anybody by their first name. But officers, colonels.
Shut up, Francis.
Colonels will call, Colonels will call majors and, certain individuals in their kind of circle by their first name. And when you're face to face but you're out in front of others, the subordinates are always respective of the rank. But I can imagine that a major that is in the office of their boss, they probably speak on a first name basis. Right. So I'll give you
kind of the time and the place thing, right?
Correct.
In corporate America, I had a VP and who left the company that I'm still with, that Sean used to work with. But I used to be able to go into Mark's office, shut the door, and be like, dude, what the fuck? He'd be like, I fucking know the hell, man. And we could have a cussing match. But that was in that room with that door closed, and outside of that door, that never happened. So anyway, carry on.
Right. So it depends on who's in that room and what the relationship dynamic is, but that's not uncommon to happen. Now there's little differences between like the enlisted and the officer ranks that kind of take place. But nonetheless, that's kind of a culture thing. So literally you could have a military campaign and everybody just speak freely. Like, yes, I'm 3 ranks higher than you, or 2 ranks higher than you, or you're enlisted, I'm an officer. But I mean, if you get into the special forces piece of it, a lot of those officers are really kind of, I wouldn't say equals, but because they tend to do different jobs and they're responsible for different things. But I know people listening to this who've served in the military are like, you hand wave that in certain situations, but that's the thing. It's, you are in tune with that, and you know that in the back. Yes. When somebody snaps, you can understand the context of that. Right. So it's like, hey, I'm not fucking around anymore. Ah, gotcha. Okay, now we're getting into this mode. Got it.
There's a in one of my favorite fantasy series is the Black Company books by Glenn Cook. And there's a character, the main person who starts as Croker is the name of the physician who's kind of the narrator, and he's carrying everything. At one point, this guy shows up, and he's from another group, and he's being a complete shit, and he's just being an ass and disrespectful and so forth. And the captain is there of this the Black Company, which is this mercenary band, and he goes, Sergeant, and Croker, he goes, no one ever called Elmo Sergeant unless it was really, really serious. Everyone just called him Elmo. That was just, again, to your point, that was the thing they had when he was called Sergeant, like, oh God. And then click, yes, sir. All right, sir. Yes, sir. And they just went and did. It was a display of power that they had to an outside group. When they were in family, when it was just that group of people, a command structure and so forth, it was a lot less formal because they were a mercenary band and this is how they worked. But to show somebody else that they meant fucking business, snap, 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 everybody fell into line and did a thing. So that makes sense. I like that idea. And that's, again, something that if you're playing a game like a Firefly where it's kind of chain of command but a little less formal, even my my Traveler game, which is one of the things that brought this to my mind for a topic, they've mustered out through the Traveler system. When you're done, you've spent your time in whatever career path you've gone through and you've mustered out. So I have ex-military, ex-Navy, ex-whatever folks here, and they're operating together in a loose chain of command system. They still need somebody on the ship needs to make the call, right? Somebody needs to be the captain because, like as you said, death by committee. If everybody decides, what do we do? It's not a good call, especially in the heat of battle.
And if there isn't a captain or somebody that is overseeing this ship, then you might as well be like, even Captain Stubing was a captain.
Yes, exactly.
So my point is, maybe you're on a pontoon boat then.
Yeah, yeah.
Like what kind of show are you running here?
Yeah, it's a piece when, like in Traveler, when you have to land and they had a problem. So, Beta's like, okay, mechanic, you stay here, do this, you go do that, you go make sure this is taken care of and run off and find parts. Say, okay, yep, that's my job. I go do the thing. The guy who does engineering runs off. The person who plays that does this other thing and so on. So I guess short version, again, to kind of put a wrapper on this one, I think they can be a lot of fun. I think there is great potential for abuse on all sides. Right, where players like everybody wants to mutiny all the time. I'm going to be insubordinate. Fuck you. I don't know. Fuck you. And you can have that battle constantly, but that is not the spirit of what you're trying to. Unless that's the game, right? Is everybody mutiny? If that's the title of your game, good on you. You asked for it, type of thing. But otherwise, it takes some good role playing, and it takes an agreement. Everybody has to say this is what we're going to do, and I also think it's potentially X card worthy when you have people in command who may be overbearing. And I do think you can stop a game and say, look, that's too much, man. You as captain, you can't keep trying to send everybody to the freaking break, dude. Stop doing that.
Well, that's
over the top.
Then everybody needs to gang up on him and mutiny.
Yes.
Take him over.
Yeah. At that point, maybe that is the thing you need to do. Right.
Now, there's one other thing that we haven't touched on that we haven't. One thing that comes from AD&D that is similar to some of the things that we mentioned, and that's caller. The role of the caller.
Yeah, that was the old school table. So basically, back in the day, for those who may be younger than Sean and I and don't recall this, Gygax and Arneson, those folks you had roles that would be assigned out at the table. You had a mapper and a caller. The caller's job was to take all the different actions, because you rolled initiative for the group, right? So they would take all the actions. There's 5 of us playing. Sean's the caller. Brett's the mapper. I'm drawing out all this stuff to make sure we don't get lost. Sean says, okay, guys, what are we going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And he organize, coordinate that stuff and go, Game Master, Ange, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take, Eileen's going to go first, and I got Mongrel going second, and Brett's mage is going to come in, and then I'm the dwarf warrior. I'm going to be guarding, you'd lay all those pieces out, kind of orders, if you will. So the Game Master knew what everything was going on.
And I don't doubt in the least that comes from wargaming, because wargaming has ranks.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that either.
And they probably needed somebody to make a command decision. So instead of having 4 people all just kind of be like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. What? Are you sure? Are you going to do that? Are you going to do this? It's just everybody comes to a consensus and one person says, right, like you said, GM, this is what we're going to do.
And that's interesting because brings up what you and I have talked about a number of episodes back. Again, if I don't recall where, so you got to start at 1 and you know what to do from there. Those players that sit there and don't know what to do. Maybe I punch him in the face. Maybe I stand here and wait for the goblin. I don't know what to do. And when you have a group of people or, you know, arguing back and forth what they should do, or a caller, an individual whose role is to say, look, I have to take our turn and turn it in to the game master. So Angie knows what the hell we're doing. You know, Brett, Elf, and Eileen have got their stuff in. Sean, dude, we gotta, you know, what are you gonna do?
Right.
And where does it play? That I know that can slow down play, and some people think that's an asinine approach, but I do it's that type of command decision, as you said, or that type of organization is the type of thing that a chain of command, be it military, police officer, secret society, church, whatever, somebody has to say, this is the order we're going to do it in. You know, somebody has to dig a trench. Somebody has to dig a latrine. Somebody has to do this thing. Somebody has to make sure the perimeter is secure. Somebody has to do this. Somebody has to do the paperwork, whatever. Those jobs and duties need to be assigned out. And in order to make sure that all that shit is done and accounted for, there's usually one person at the top whose job it is to make sure that shit's taken care of. And when it isn't taken care of, is not taken care of, and they don't take care of it repeatedly, that's when shit goes to hell. And then the crew has the right to, you know, call the captain aside and perhaps deliver a well-deserved ass whooping if necessary.
All right, let's get into die roll.
Let's do it.
Die roll. Element of the show where we bring 2 to 4 miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery to your attention. Typically, Brett has a couple. I have a couple. We have had an overwhelming response from listeners supplying information for die rolls. Brett and I kind of took it light this week. Brett's got one. I didn't have any because I wrote down, I think, almost all the ones from the listeners. So, Brett, which one do you have this week?
I have one that there was a nuke that went missing from 1950. BBC has this nuclear weapon missing since 1950, quote, may have been found. A commercial diver may have discovered a lost decommissioned U.S. nuclear bomb off the coast of Canada. It's one of those things where, like, I didn't think that we lose nuclear bombs, really. I mean, now granted, I'm aware of that, but it's just interesting that there was a loose nuke somewhere out there, and hey, here it is. It's underwater. Sorry about that,
well,
Canada.
Brett, you know about that now because the press finally got wind of it. But James Bond has been on that for the last 6 months. He's been tracking that, and he's been in the couple hideouts and everything, and tracked it on a train. I mean, it's all water under the bridge now,
or nukes under the water, whatever it is.
Well, right.
All right. But anyway, so my point for calling this out is not just the historical oddness of it, but it's this type of thing that when I read this, I'm like, oh, that's game material. Oh, that's a plot line. Even if it's not like a James Bond over the top type of spy thing, it just goes to, oh, you know, that mythical, you know, Mace of St. Cuthbert that's been missing. Hey, guess what? Somebody found it or somebody thinks they found the lost treasure map. And it's one of those things that it's a bit tropey, especially in certain areas, or I should say in the fantasy world, but taking that and moving it into a Delta Green game or a Chain of Command game, saying, hey, guess what? You Special Forces team, you're going over here. Why? Oh, this is why. We lost the shipment of X. Something happened. Sometimes there's snafus. And guess what? We finally found out where it is. Go get it. It could be fun, even like the first Predator movie with Schwarzenegger, right? There's a cabinet minister who went missing. Go get it. And that's really not what it was. You know, it's a good ploy, if nothing else, to get things started. And anyhow, so I read this and I immediately thought of gaming, of course, because that's what I do.
Right. So I think these first two from listeners are the same one. So Hobbs and James Carruthers talk about a mystery pinging sound coming from the Arctic sea floor.
Oh, that's my fault. Hobbs had posted that, and I did not see Carruthers, so we double did on that one. But anyway, they both brought it to our attention.
Well, there's something going on, and there always has been, I'm sure.
My assumption is that someone has found the machine that goes ping. You've seen Monty Python, right?
Oh.
The machine that goes ping when the woman's pregnant. Oh, so you have the machine that goes ping. That's our most expensive machine.
I see.
Anyway, somebody out there listening to this is going to laugh. Oh, yes, the machine that goes ping. Can I see my baby? No, you're not qualified. And then they'll put the anyway, it's a it's fucking funny is what it is. You need to see it.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about Monty Python on our podcast and not in our role-playing games like anybody else would ever do that.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. The two don't normally go together. Anyway.
Victor Wyatt, Game Anywhere Table Kickstarter, as of November 10th, has 22 days to go. So this is going to drop on, well, it tells you when we're recording this, but that's not a secret. When is a week from 2 days ago? The 15th?
Yes, the 15th.
The 15th. It will have that many less days to go. But anyways, you do the math. It's a portable table, gaming table. That's pretty wide. I mean, I like it. I'd love to fold it up and put it in my basement because I don't know if I'd be able to unfold it and put it anywhere. But you can get die slide out cup holders, and you can add die rollers or player screeny things between each other or something like that. I don't know.
Interesting.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Very cool looking.
You want to do the first one for Azrael?
Yeah, Azrael has the big random D100 list of tavern drinks. There's a free printable PDF form out there. We got a link out to. It's Azrael's pointed a couple of listeners. I know he's pointed out a couple of these to us before. I love these things. It's that random list of stuff here that you can get. What am I looking at? There's a drink, Old Stinky. It's brown with floating debris. Just random things that could be in a tavern. Sometimes people are like, what do I have? I'll have an ale and have a table that says, oh, really? What kind of ale? It's a shitty bar. It's called Snake's Piss or whatever it is that you're serving. It's fun. I love these types.
How come we didn't come up with that, Brett? I mean, we've been in enough bars and drank enough booze that we'd be able to come up with at least 100.
It was probably a really good idea we had, and then just kind of.
Oh, we probably forgot about it because we were hammered when we came up with the idea.
We may have had this idea at the Game Hole Happy Hour and just completely forgot about it afterwards, for all I know.
Good point.
That's quite possible.
Good point.
Next one we have is a 300 free 3D printing minis, printable minis. So Azrael called this out to us. Basically, it's
by Miguel Zavala.
Yeah, Miguel Zavala. It's if you've got a 3D printer, I'm looking at you, Bob Everson. Here's some goodies that you can crank out, some minis. So, Sean and I have talked about this before. When you talk about gaming and innovation type of thing, the 3D printer, man, when it comes to miniatures and modeling, I'm not alone. I believe Sean's with me on this, and a number of other people I know as well. At some point, folks at Games Workshop, they're not going to sell minis. They're going to sell a license to a number of prints. That's what you're going to get. And you're going to print the shit at home because it's just the better way to do it. And then we do have, Azrael also has 400 new magic items.
Hey, why don't you do the last one too, Brett?
Oh, I thought there was another one after
man.
this.
Yeah,
I thought there was another one.
No, go ahead, man. It's all good.
I feel bad.
You just take it all.
I got it then. All right, I'm in.
Okay, go ahead.
400 new magic items for D&D 5e is a Kickstarter by Paradigm Concepts, which has been funded. And we have a link to EnWorld.
Yes.
EnWorld. That's got some more details on it. Cool looking stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Sean. I thought there was another one after.
No, that. Don't apologize, buddy. You just hog the spotlight.
It's like talking to my mom. Are you okay, Mom? You need me to do something? No, that's fine. I'll just be here. That's fine. That's okay. No, that's good. You go do what you want. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's
excellent.
what I need.
All right. Well, if there's one thing we'd like you to do, what is that, Brett?
I would like you, and Sean would like you, to tell someone about the show. When we were at GameholeCon, one of the most fun things we get to do is not only interacting with all the cool BSers and folks we made friends with before and at other cons, but some of the new people, right? You get those people, as Sean said, who may be listening to us for the first time. They may listen to us and go, oh my God, I don't like any of this. I'll never listen to it again. Totally fine. But the best way to spread the word about what we're doing and what we're up to and help build the community, because honestly, that is the coolest thing that's happened since Sean and I have started this. Just the cool gamers that we get to run into at cons and hang out with and communicate with in our little community groups is you guys, you men and women that get in there. So the more you tell, the better gamers you bring into it, the more fun we're gonna have.
Yeah, that's right, Brett. What are we talking about next week?
I think we're going to talk about gods. Gods. That's what we're going to talk about. That's what I'm thinking of talking about.
Dogs.
If you're dyslexic or whatever. But anyway, that sounds horrible. Now I probably just offended somebody who's dyslexic, and I did not mean to do that.
Well, knock people for their learning disability. It's par for the course, Brett.
Oh my God, I'm a jackass, aren't I?
Yeah, we're just going to get sued into oblivion. It's all good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I just steal Sean's thunder earlier. I talked too damn much, and now I insulted listeners.
Aces.
Anyway, the point is, I want to talk about gods and role-playing games. So that's what we're going to ramble about next time. My apologies. I feel like I need to apologize. Great.
Well,
and then Sean's looking at me like my mother would look at me, like, yes, you damn well need to apologize. What the fuck is going on here, dude? I'm sorry. Anyway.
Well, that has been another episode of Gaming and BS.
Oh, thanks, Sean.
I am one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
We'd like to thank the Patreons that made this show possible. Starting off with Christian Serrano, Kevin Lovecraft, Joe Swick, Brett's biggest fan, Jeff Rademacher, Forrest Aguirre, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Bruce Cunnington, Eric Jeppesen, Andy Hall, Misdirected Mark Productions, Sean Nicholson, Tim Jensen, Chris Steele, Old School DM, Knights of the Night Crew, Palladian, Jason Blaylock, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Mirko Froelich, Wayne Lumrunher Humfleet, James Carpio, Nat Caprio, Tony Baker, Pure Mongrel, Lord Tentacle, Corey Johnston, Eric Tankar, Brandon Barnes, Mark Tasaka, Brett Pazinski, Tim Shorts, Eileen Barnes, Chad Knight, Dan LaValle, C.W. Mellencamp, Nicholas Abruzzo, and Victor Wyatt. For the cost of a coffee shop coffee, you could support the show for an entire month. Head over to gamingandbs.com/Patreon, Patreon. Thank you.